I'm here to tell you that the Chargers are total frauds. They are who we thought they were, and we were right all off season. But they still might make the playoffs. Hey, welcome into the Fantasy Flow podcast, where your host is always Austin and Andy. Andy, we just experienced week 8 of the 2024 NFL season, and we are recording on October 29th, a Tuesday, and lots of news just broke. This is another news-heavy week, and that makes sense, I guess, as we approach the NFL's trade deadline. Uh, some players on the move, some more injuries, some interesting decisions being made by teams kind of on the cusp of playoff contention. Let's first and foremost, I feel like we got to lead the show with what happened when Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams faced off on Sunday. How much of that game did you catch, Andy?
Yeah, I didn't catch much. I kind of just caught the last play,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. Well, it wasn't nationally televised or anything, and most people assumed it would be Mariota until like an hour before the game or so. They said, actually, it's looking like it's going to be Jaden Daniels. So we'll get there, but yeah, like that was one of my fantasy flow 4 pack picks against the spread was the Bears to cover because I thought it was Mariota, and so did Vegas when they set the line. So that goes in the trash, obviously, that pick. Forget about that pick. And the Bears almost covered anyways, obviously, if it wasn't for that miracle Hail Mary. But man, that's what everyone's talking about, Andy. Can you walk us through it? Give us your take?
I was sitting down at dinner after the Seahawks game, and I see the Bears are up by 3. So I'm okay. Looking at my parlay tickets, Bears push at 3. I just need the Steelers to win, and I win this on Monday night, and I win this parlay ticket.
Mm.
Okay, I'm looking good. And then I take a couple bites of our dinner. I look up at the screen. Wait, Commanders win? What's going on here? And then of course they show the replay right after that, and I am just in awe, in shock. And then the more videos and reviews you see that DB Stevenson
Yep.
egging on the crowd, and then he's the one that tips it. I mean, it's just like it's almost like a movie. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean the NFL script writers were on one with this game because it looked like the Commanders had it the whole way. I mean, they never led by a whole lot because it was a low-scoring game, but they were in control from start to almost finish, and then finally Caleb Williams and the Bears put together a drive. And that drive, and we'll get to it. This kind of bleeds into one of my overreactions from the weekend, but in that drive, I think DeAndre Swift ripped off like a 40-yard run, and then they finally hit some plays. Seems like the offense was moving, and boom, they score a touchdown, take the lead, and you're like, whoa, they're going to actually get away with this one. And then I guess they just left the Commanders and Jaden Daniels too much time. What'd they have, like 20 seconds? And then they hit like a couple plays, get to about midfield, and then I think Jaden Daniels, the ball traveled 65 yards in the air into a sea of hands. One of the Bears DBs tips it up, and I was overhearing, taking in all the discussion around this play, and I think that is part of the strategy is to just have one receiver just stay back in case of that exact scenario. We saw, I think AJ Green did this, and I remember because it was against my Ravens. He did this maybe 5 years ago or something like that, where he just caught this totally fluky Hail Mary right off of a tip. And we see the same thing. But yeah, like you said, Stevenson, the DB, he was jawing. I don't know if it was with fans or if it was with the Commanders' sidelines, but he's literally talking trash as the wide receivers are sprinting downfield, and then he goes, "Oh, okay, I guess I'll run over there, and Jaden Daniels had 12 seconds holding the ball, scrambling around for 12 seconds. So Tyreek Stevenson actually had time to catch back up to the play, and then he was the one who tipped it to the wide receiver. And of course, there's zeros on the clock, and Commanders win. And that has massive NFC implications. What do you think this does to the NFC and to both of these teams specifically, that result?
Yeah, I think it puts the Commanders way ahead of the pack when it comes to their division. I think they really needed that win to help separate them against Philadelphia. And the Bears, they needed that win to stay in the pack, but I'm not too worried about the Bears. I think it helped the Commanders more than it hurt the Bears, if that makes sense.
The Bears still have a lot of divisional games left, so they're going to control their own destiny, and with the Commanders, the Eagles looked great. That was one of our picks that we absolutely nailed. The Eagles beat up on the Bengals, so
Oh, yeah.
yeah, every win counts for the Commanders team, who right now is the number 2 seed in the NFC.
Wow.
So if they can just hang
Wow.
on to that, they're looking pretty. Like they're looking to do things that no NFL team has done with a rookie quarterback. Like that's where they're set up right now.
Rookie quarterback, brand new head coach,
Yes.
brand new owner, brand new GM. Like, it is a clean slate, and they are like you said, they are in second place after 8 weeks. That is impressive. No matter how they finish, that statement alone is impressive.
I agree 100%. Elsewhere, Stephon Diggs just announced that Stephon Diggs for the Houston Texans tore his ACL, and he's out for the season. Yet another wide receiver who has torn his ACL. And, there's a huge conversation to get into. Feels like an off-season conversation because there are so many wide receivers across the league tearing ACLs, pulling hamstrings, and it was a position that a lot of people going into like fantasy drafts thought of as the safer position, and it seems like that just doesn't feel like it's the case anymore. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that real quick. It just seems like a trend that we're seeing across the league.
Yeah, and not only in fantasy football, but in real NFL. I mean, teams were shelling out big money for these top tier wide receivers because they are the safer bet than versus the running back position. So it's interesting to see how both the fantasy community and GMs and teams are taking that into account of the wide receivers. And like you said, I mean, everybody is vulnerable. Nobody is safe.
Elsewhere in the division, the Colts swap quarterbacks. They had some success with Flacco, but then they're like, we really got to see AR. This is his year. We want to know if we have a franchise QB or not. So they put AR back in there, lose a critical game against the Texans, and now they're saying, actually, we want to go back to Flacco. Does this division still have a clear favorite, considering the quarterback change over here and the major injury to an offensive stud over here?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think Texans are still favored. Their defense is probably the best in the division. Their head coach is probably the best in the division. Their quarterback is probably the best in the division. So I'm a huge Joe Mixon fan. I've been trying to trade for Joe Mixon and get Joe Mixon on my team now that he's back and healthy. I mean, I think Joe Mixon is going to be an underlying factor in all this, making sure that the Houston Texans stay atop of the division.
They're going to give him a huge workload, and he's got a lot of miles on those tires, and I just hope he can handle it for their sake. Man, do we even see Anthony Richardson start another game this year?
It just depends. I mean, we said that same question about Bryce Young, right? Like with Andy Dalton coming in, I would have said at that time, I said Bryce Young isn't coming in unless Andy Dalton gets hurt. I mean, so I'm going to just say the same thing here. Unless Joe Flacco gets hurt, I don't think we're going to see Anthony Richardson. I think he lost the locker room with that game. I think he lost the confidence of the head coaches. I think he lost I think he was really on thin ice with the fan base, and that game and that tap of the helmet, that just threw everything out the window in my book.
He subbed himself out near the end of a close game because he said he was tired. That is just not acceptable in the NFL. Like, everyone's tired. Everyone's playing through injuries. Everyone's gassed in the fourth quarter. Like, that is wild from a quarterback. So,
I mean, yeah, we just a little bit on that statement. We see players sub themselves out by coaches after a wide receiver does a 9 route, after a big punt return, after a running back does a huge play or something like that. Like, the coaches are like, no, you need to take this next play off. So I don't really see the substitution part of it as an issue. I see the conditioning and the understanding your surroundings and understanding what's at stake right now if you are not in the game. I see that as a bigger issue, not so much asking to be subbed out.
in other news, Deontay Johnson, number one wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers, has been traded today to the Baltimore Ravens for a 5th, 6th round pick swap in the upcoming draft. What was your reaction when you were able to process that news today, as it pertains to fantasy football specifically?
Yeah, so the Ravens give a 5th, and then they get a 6th and Deontay.
Yes.
Wow, that's a steal. I don't know what's going on with these wide receivers being traded for like crumbs, like 5th, 6th round picks. That doesn't make any sense to me, especially a younger player like Deontay Johnson. DeAndre Hopkins is a little bit older, and so that kind of makes sense. But when it comes to fantasy, I don't see why the Ravens made this move. I think the only reason that comes to my mind is they're trying to win the championship this year, and they see Deontay as that an extra piece to help them get there.
Yeah, I think the reason why they traded for Deontay Johnson could have been that Rashad Bateman drop. He had like a wide open 50-yard bomb from Lamar Jackson that just clanked off of his face. He said he lost it in the sun, but
Oh boy,
that's tough in a tight game that they ended up losing. Yeah, the GM's gonna want to try and upgrade that position because he's thinking about a Super Bowl. And so to your point, Deontay Johnson, age-wise, he is in the prime of his career. He is a route running specialist. He's one of the I always say when it comes to Deontay Johnson, he's one of the best wide receivers that I've ever seen run routes and be so bad at catching the ball. Like, that's all you have to do as a receiver in the NFL is create separation and catch the ball. And I've never seen someone be so good at the first one and so bad at the second one as Deontay Johnson. But if you can consistently get open, that's the hardest part, ironically, and he's so good at that. So you can live with a couple drops when the guy's getting open regularly. And yeah, they hardly had to give up anything. So he's in the prime of his career, but he's in the last year of his contract. So it is basically like a rental for half a season. So I could see why teams might not want to do that. That being said, you get the player in your building. He's excited to be there. He's on a winning team. Maybe you just sign him to an extension. I don't know. That seems like what I would do, but we don't see that in the league a whole lot. So there must be a reason why GMs don't do that.
Yeah, they also just signed Bateman to like a 4-year extension or something like that.
Did they?
Yeah, so this offseason, right before the season started. So I don't know. I guess it's just going to depend on how Deontay does this year.
Well, receivers are dropping like flies, it seems like. So
That's true.
It's never a bad idea to add a playmaker, especially when it doesn't cost you anything. And I want to talk about that because it seems like you were surprised to hear the trade compensation. So the Ravens pay they pay to move back from the 5th round to the 6th round. That's what they gave up. So they moved back from the 5th to the 6th to acquire Deontay Johnson. The funny part is the Ravens' 5th round pick and the Panthers' 6th round pick Like those could be back-to-back picks because the
Yeah,
Panthers are so bad and the Ravens are Super Bowl contenders. So it's like it's a
right.
difference of literally like probably I could count on my hand the number of spots in the draft they moved back in the at the end of the fifth round. Like they gave up nothing. It's
Yeah, no,
hilarious. Like I
no.
would love for them to just be back-to-back in the draft and that this trade show up on the screen during draft day and us just be like, oh my God,
The Panthers did it
the
again.
Panthers. Let's move on. Let's talk about what happened in Seattle. Andy, you were there
Uh,
live in person to witness it. Give us an account of what took place.
I'll make it short and sweet. So I didn't know what to expect when it came to Bills fans, how many there was going to be.
Oh,
And I'm often going to the 49ers game, which they always show out for that game. They always show up. So I have that in the back of my mind. But, Bills, like, that's a really long drive. Maybe a couple Canadian fans are Bills. They'll come on down. Who knows? But holy crap. Walking around the stadium, getting a hot dog, getting into the game. I mean, it was just jam packed with Bills fans. I could not believe how many were around there. And my seats are in the visitor section. So, of course, I'm preparing to be around Bills, but then it wasn't until the game started when you could hear them on the Seahawks offense. I mean, it was loud, and it was louder than like the 49ers get. And I'm like, man, this is not good. And I'm here repping my team. And but was that a factor? Probably not, because the Seahawks just sucked. It was so bad. I don't blame the defense at all. They tried their hardest. I had the greatest view of some of these like sidearm, like ball is going right behind the offensive lineman's butt into Shakir's hands from Josh Allen. I mean, I had some crazy angles on this ball, and it just really showed Josh Allen's ability and why he's a top 3 quarterback.
you make a great point about Josh Allen's just command of the offense. And when he's on, you basically have to be near perfect on offense to keep up on the scoreboard because our defense is a work in progress. So I wasn't surprised by that. I was surprised by how bad the offense looked, but I think it was a lot of just fluky circumstances. We are on the 1 yard line and we get stopped. It's fourth down and our coach decides to go for it. This is right before halftime, and I honestly love the call because you have to keep up with Josh Allen, like I said. So I love the call to go for it on fourth down, and we'll never know what that play call was because the center stepped on Gino's foot and he falls backwards, and that's the half. So it was just like so many points taken off the board, seemingly because of our center. So that's just, I mean, it is sloppy all around. I remember Tom Brady on the broadcast, he was saying how he's always paranoid about that happening. So he
Mm,
understands where the center is placing what foot and which foot goes first when he snaps it, and then he adjusts his footing accordingly. So that was actually the one interesting note that I heard from Brady while watching the game. Let's talk reactions from the rest of the action. Let's go to the AFC. Andy, can you take us to the AFC and tell us what you're thinking?
yeah, I'm going to go to the AFC North. I'm going to go to this team. They're in Ohio, and they didn't get a win this week. I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals are wasting Joe Burrow's prime. If they don't have it's like a weird like T Higgins curse they got going on. If they don't have T Higgins, they don't win the game. And they didn't have T Higgins this game. I just don't know what's going on with the Cincinnati Bengals. Their run game looks terrible now. Their defense has been bad, and it continues to be bad. And Joe Burrow's like, "Hey man, I'm doing my best out here. Like I'm arguably a top 5, top 6 quarterback in this league, and I still can't get it done. Like I can't do literally everything. I just they're gonna finish in last place. Jameis is gonna carry the Browns to get like the same record as the Bengals or something like that, and then the Bengals are just they're just squandering this, and I just that's my overreaction is that Bengals are wasting Joe Burrow's career.
Yeah, that's a great note about the splits with and without T. Higgins. He's so important to that offense. And yeah, I was watching a little bit of this game, and I guess he's their number two wide receiver without T. Higgins. His name's Andre Yoshivas. And I keep seeing if he's going to make plays because he actually had a pretty cool story coming out of college. And he made what seemed like a great play. It was like a critical 20-yard catch on one of their drives, and they ruled it a catch. Other team threw the challenge flag. They looked at it, and it was a drop. And it's just like, oh man, if that's T. Higgins, he's coming down with that. And
Oh yeah.
you just hate to see it. I want to talk about a different AFC team, one that actually did get a win this week, one that is right now in the wild card. They have one of the wild card spots if the season were to end today. I'm talking about the LA Chargers, a team that some pundits picked to go to the playoffs. Others didn't. They're kind of that bubble team. I was one who didn't. I was doubting this Chargers team. I thought that they were going to be a work in progress, that it was not going to look good, that it was going to take time. I believe in Jim Harbaugh, but not year one. That's what we both said this offseason. I'm here to tell you that the Chargers are total frauds. They are who we thought they were, and we were right all offseason. But they still might make the playoffs, and I'm very frustrated by this. So let's pull up the Chargers' schedule, and let's see the teams that they've actually gotten wins against. They are the Raiders, the Panthers, the Broncos, and the Saints. Now, three of those teams are probably among the 5 worst teams in the league. The other
Right.
one being the Broncos, and they have a rookie quarterback. They seem like they're doing all right. I like them better than the Chargers, despite what happened when they played. We'll see them again. So because they beat up on bad teams, they have a record of 4-3, and their next 2 games are against the Cleveland Browns and the Tennessee Titans. So they could easily be, what is that, 6-3. And then
Yeah.
to end the year, their last 2 games are against the Patriots, and then they get the Raiders again. 2 teams
Wow.
who are already tanking. So if you give them those 2 more wins, that's 8 wins. So they just need to come up with 1 more win, and they're probably in the playoffs in the AFC.
Wow. Yeah, that's an interesting. Yeah, they have a really weird schedule now that I'm looking at it. Like you mentioned, Cleveland, Tennessee, then they have Cincinnati, and I just said how bad Cincinnati is.
Vulnerable,
So
yeah,
that's
highly vulnerable.
that's probably a win. Baltimore, Atlanta, Kansas City. There's probably a win somewhere out of those 3 games. So
Maybe.
that's 4 wins. And then their last 4, Tampa, Denver, New England, Las Vegas. They at a minimum they're winning 2 there.
That reaction from the NFC.
Yeah, I'm going to dog on the Vikings here and Sam Darnold. There was rumors of Stafford, Vikings trying to acquire Matthew Stafford from the Rams, and then they play the Rams that very week, and then they lose to the Rams that game. I think there's a reason why there's that rumor because Sam Darnold is just not the answer. And I'm going to pull up the Vikings schedule here. I have it written down, but I'm gonna pull it up as well.
Sure.
They only have they have a pretty tough schedule moving forward. So as we know, the NFC North hasn't had a lot of divisional games yet. That's all saved for the end of the end of the year. So the Vikings only have 2 teams the rest of the year that are below 500, and that's and they're back to back. It's at Jacksonville and at Tennessee, week 10 and week 11. All the other teams that they play are either 500 or better the rest of this as it sits right now. I don't know if the Vikings are going to be anywhere close in the playoff picture by the end of the year. I'm guessing the Vikings might finish and I think they will last place in the NFC North.
Whoa. Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised to hear that they have a bunch of teams left on their schedule with great records because their division is nuts. They have so many divisional games still to go. And yeah, I think anyone making snap judgments about this division before they've all played each other is making a mistake. And yeah, they're not trending well. I have a little bit more faith in what I've seen. I think that this defense is still scary. I think that they'll make some adjustments and they'll figure it out. They'll adjust to the adjustments other offenses are making. And I think as long as Justin Jefferson and Aaron Jones stay healthy, that Sam Darnold can just be that game manager and do enough to get there. But yeah, I mean, if the Lions continue to roll like they are, they're going to go on the road in the playoffs. And yeah, I don't know. I think you're right to dog on them. They're on a 2-game losing streak. So that's something to monitor for sure, is Sam Darnold's play, and is their ceiling really what we thought their ceiling was when they were
Right.
one of the only undefeated teams left?
They did just trade for Cam Robinson, a left tackle from the Jaguars. So they're seeing their window close as well, and they're trying to make a move to make that a bigger window.
You love to see that if you're the Vikings fan base. I mean, it's always good to see your team making moves and being self-aware. So that's really good. I don't know. I've made a mistake of reading too much into mid-season acquisitions. Before we just saw Amari Cooper. Would he get like one catch with the Bills on the same week? Devontae Adams had like 3 catches for 30 yards or something. So it's
Right.
like, okay,
Right.
these mid-season trades, you love to see it, but let's see the impact before we just
Yes.
automatically give this team a bump up in any power rankings or anything like that.
I agree.
Last note I have about the NFC, I'm going to talk about a different team in the NFC North, the Bears. And I think the Bears made a mistake drafting Caleb Williams instead of Jaden Daniels.
Wow. That is bold.
That's
That
my
is bold.
overreaction for the week. I think they should have drafted Jaden Daniels. I think Caleb Williams is going to have success in the NFL. I'm not saying anything against him and his talent, but clearly Jaden Daniels is the guy. I mean, come on. What are we talking about? We're talking about Caleb Williams. They said no rookie quarterback was set up for success as much as he was. He has 3 awesome receivers on a team with a great defense, and he is just in a total position to win now. And then Jaden Daniels, he was going to a franchise in disarray and a team with only 1 wide receiver, Terry McLaurin, right? And
Yeah.
so then they
Yeah.
square off. And oh, by the way, Jaden Daniels is hobbled in this game. They weren't sure if he was going to play, so he's playing through injury to his ribs, and he has far and away the better game. Before that Hail Mary, I want to talk about Caleb Williams. His stat line, I'm going to read it for you. He completed 10 out of his 24 passes, so that's less than 50%, for 131 yards on the day. No touchdowns, no interceptions. That's objectively terrible, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. His leading receiver was Rome Odunze in this game. 3 catches for 41 yards. Woo! And then meanwhile, on the other side, Jaden Daniels, he's completing 21 of 38 passes for over 300 yards. And yes, that stat is padded by the Hail Mary at the end of the game. But yeah, about 3
Yeah.
times his passing yards when they squared off, and Chicago was supposed to have the better defense.
True. That is a good point. I'm going to deem this as an overreaction. I think I would much rather be in the NFC East than in the NFC North. I would much rather have Cliff Kingsbury than Shane Waldron, and I would much rather have Dan Quinn than Matt Eberflus as a head coach. I think coaching plays a big factor in this type of discussion and where they're at. Yes, Chicago has more weapons. Yes, Chicago has the better defense. I think I think Jaden was a little bit more ready to start the NFL. I don't think that's an overreaction to say that. Now, yeah, only time will tell, unfortunately, to see
Yeah.
who will have the better career.
Yeah, obviously we need more time. I mean, it is fun to speculate about that, and there's no denying what happened on Sunday. I mean, that was a
Right.
disaster for Caleb Williams, but he has tons of time to improve, and we'll see. But it is just interesting to see Caleb Williams go one, Jaden Daniels go two. And then
Two.
last year, what did we see? We saw CJ Stroud go two.
Totally outperforming the backup Bryce Young.
Yeah, right, right. And then the year before that, because I was curious to see if that trend went back any farther, we had the Jaguars selecting Trayvon Walker when Aiden Hutchinson, who plays at the same
Oh,
position, goes number
yeah.
two. So this would be three
Wow.
straight years of the first and second picks being the same position and the guy taking second being an absolute home run. Uh, I Caleb Williams seems like he's gonna be a successful NFL player. He's not a bust.
Right.
He's not gonna be like what the Panthers are experiencing. But
Right.
that's just
Jaden,
an interesting little trend that I noticed.
yeah, Jaden is definitely the more ready NFL quarterback than Caleb for sure.
Let's give an update for our listener guillotine league. We lost another great team. This team had a pretty great roster, and his name is Gene, and Gene went the longest of anyone in the league without spending any fab. He just had a phenomenal draft and good injury luck, and he just hung around. And if you can afford to do that, which clearly he did, that is a great strategy. That is the easiest way to get yourself near the finale of a guillotine league, is to just save your money and
Right.
ride it out. And I really thought he was doing a great job. And then this week, he didn't even do too bad. He scored 90 points, but that was 20 points away from the next lowest team. The bar's getting raised. The bar is
Yeah.
getting raised, and we're going to talk about it coming up. But, man, you need to kind of switch your strategy once you get near the middle of the season in these guillotine leagues, because not being last just means something different in a 12-team league than it did in a 18-team league. What are your thoughts on that, Andy?
Yeah, I think you said it well. He had a pretty good team. C.J. Stroud, Saquon Barkley, Brock Bowers. I mean, he had some studs on his team,
Yeah.
and they put up 90 points. But the bar is now at 90 or above, and everybody else was well above that 90 mark. So,
Right, right. Yeah,
yeah,
he didn't have any duds like I did. He didn't have any goose eggs. His
right,
quarterback CJ Stroud had a bad week, and no one else on his team popped off. And next thing you know, you're gone. So,
right, right.
moment of silence for Gene.
The tribe has spoken.
All right.
All right.
Now we are going to bring on our first ever guest for the Fantasy Flow podcast. We're going to bring on a friend of mine and a member of our home guillotine league that's been running for a few years now. And I'm really excited to get his perspective on the format, on the season, how it's going, what strategies he's using. Let's turn it over to Deion. All right, Deion, welcome to the Fantasy Flow. We're super happy to have you.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on the Fantasy Flow.
Yeah, man. I introduced you to guillotine leagues. You've been a longtime fantasy football player, right? But I shared you guillotine leagues, correct?
Correct. Just sitting at work, and he was like, "Hey, you want to join?" I said, "Sounds awesome. Let me get in on this." Played for
Yeah,
the
he's like,
first
I don't know what
time.
you're talking about, but let's do
Exactly.
it.
Exactly. I was like, "Football. I'm all for football. Let's do it."
What are some things that you like about guillotine leagues as opposed to regular fantasy leagues?
It keeps you intrigued every week, and you never know when it's your turn to go, right? And the beauty of Guillotine League is, say if your team is actually trash, you don't have to sit out. You don't have to play the whole season and having to keep your lineup up to date. And you know, once you're out, you're out. So basically, if you're still in the league, you still have a chance to go all the way.
I do love that too. Yeah,
Yep.
it builds the anticipation. Every week feels really weighty because not only do you not know who's going to get chopped, you don't know what players are going to be available on waivers that next
Correct.
week. So
Yep.
it's so important. All the matchups, you're looking across the whole league, not just your matchup. And yeah, it's great. Either you survive in advance or you get chopped, and it sucks to get chopped. Seems like you caught on pretty quick. We are in a home league together. All three of us. We're in a guillotine league. This is not the listener league. This is a different guillotine league, and you've had some pretty good success every year, I must say.
Um, yeah, I try to, just follow the depth chart and just see what sleepers are out there,
Mm.
and try to build my team. Because I believe our first year we didn't offer trades, but I was pressing you to bring that open because I was like I had some decent bench players that I'm willing to trade up to get better players.
You took home a share of the championship winnings on that. It was the year with the Damar Hamlin play, and no one knew
Correct.
what to do because they didn't finish the game. But
Correct.
that was fantasy championship week. So I got a lot of respect for your fantasy football abilities, and I hear that you've taken guillotine and you've brought it home to your friends and family.
Yeah, I introduced it to my group of buddies and my cousins, and they love it. They love the idea. Last year, we played for it for the first time, and everybody returned back and said, "Hey, let's run it back again." So everybody's loving it. This year, it was a little unfortunate for me because I went out week one. I didn't even get to use any fab. Oh, it was terrible.
Oh man,
They're
you're the
constantly
commissioner.
talking shit to everybody. They're buddies from like they knew me half my life. My cousins obviously knew me my whole life. They're not letting me hear the end of this, so it sucks. It sucks.
Oh my
I picked up
god.
Marvin Harrison second round. That's what happened.
Yeah, it feels like that SpongeBob meme where we're Squidward inside the house watching, Patrick and SpongeBob play outside.
Yep.
Like, yeah, it's
Yes.
tough. But
Yes.
Andy, did you have some questions for Dion, specifically as it comes to like this year and where we're at?
Yeah, Dion. So you and me are 2 out of the 10 left in this home guillotine league,
Yep.
and the goal is to get to top three because that's where we get some money, right? So what are some things that you're looking for your team to try to get to those final three teams moving forward?
Realistically, I only really try to spend big money on players that I believe would actually take me to the end, right? So that I
Right.
overbid on CMC. I totally get that, but I was just looking to the end. I wasn't, I knew he was gonna be on IR. I'll let him sit there, but because I have the other league, I believe CMC went for about $400 or $500 even when he was on the IR. So I was like, okay. I thought my bid 240 was reasonable compared to that. CD went for like over $600, so I got him for like
Yeah.
280. So I thought I got a steal with that.
Right.
So
Yeah. I think what I learned last year, I finished second place last year. I think what I learned is having a quarterback that you are okay to start the rest of the year. And for me this year, last year that was Josh Allen. He carried me to the final two, and I think this year that's Jalen Hurts. I think whoever has
I
Jalen
agree.
Hurts, that's their quarterback. We're probably gonna see Jalen in the final two, maybe final three teams. So whoever has Jalen, hold on to him. Don't get eliminated because I'm gonna do everything in my power to try to go get Jalen.
I get that. Jalen is one quarterback I really like. For running backs, I think Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, those could
Right.
be league winners.
Yep.
Nico Collins, if he comes back, I think he could be a league winner as well.
Now the grind begins in my mind.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
Do you still have CMC on your IR?
Yeah, I do.
Man, and then Tua just came back. So I traded you Tyreek earlier this year, right?
Yep, you did.
Yeah, so I was in trouble. My team was terrible, and I didn't want to spend my fab. So what I did was I traded Tyreek, who I thought was going to suck, while Tua was gone, and I got some players that could help me now. And Dion, his team was just his team was on top every week. So you took on that risk, and now Tua's back, and you're still in it. And same thing with CMC, right? They have a bye week this week, but he's coming back. So you are really starting to snowball in a good way. And I love that strategy. You've got all eyes on the end game.
The hardest part to fill is that tight end spot. There's
Yep.
there's
Definitely
really
this
not that
year.
many options. I got lucky with Hunter Henry. I think I've been happy with him. So.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
they made that quarterback switch,
Yeah.
and going to Drake May has helped, but now May seems like he got a concussion or something, so we'll see this week. We talked about our Guillotine Listener League and how just the bar is getting raised every single week. What you need to do to avoid the chop. The bar keeps getting raised, and so how do you feel about Fab specifically, and when to spend, when to go in on players? How long do you hold it for the end game?
Me, I mean,
What are your thoughts on that strategy? Because there's no one way to go about it,
there isn't, but you don't want to feel like crap for not being able to spend anything, hoarding your money and being shopped, right? You don't want that feeling at all. So I just thought anybody that I really like that I could take to the end, let me just put some money on it, something reasonable that it's competitive enough. And
Yeah, I hear that.
because I got shot week 1 in the other league. I felt so bad I couldn't spend anything, so I was like, screw it, I'm putting money out there. Might as well try and then be
Right,
conservative
right.
with it. Yep,
What's the fear of God in you?
exactly.
Andy, what are your thoughts on that when it comes to Fab?
Yeah. I think it just depends on where you're at and your production these last couple of weeks. In the listener league, I'm looking pretty good, and I have over $500 of Fab. So I'm looking good on Fab, on budget, on my team structure. So I don't really feel like I need to spend anything. And like you said earlier, Austin, holding that as much as I can. In this home league, I only have $41 left, so I'm not getting it. I'm picking up the scraps.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to survive as long as I can now in this one, knowing that I'm definitely at the bottom when it comes to Fab budget.
Yeah, well, I do like that perspective, and yeah, I would hesitate to give blanket advice when it comes to Guillotine, because the number one thing is self-awareness. You need to be self-aware about your own team. Let's move on to the NFL, and we need to eliminate another NFL team. Just to recap for both of our listeners, we've already eliminated the Carolina Panthers, the New York Giants, New England Patriots, Jacksonville Jaguars, Las Vegas Raiders, Cleveland Browns, and last week we eliminated the Tennessee Titans. So this week, I feel like there's a number of options. I don't feel too conflicted picking any one of them, but it's not clear. So I kind of wanted to open up the discussion, specifically the Saints. They dropped another game. They look really bad. They have just absolute chaos at quarterback. Just based on record, you could throw the Jets in there too. And then another team in the Jets' own division, the Dolphins, are still hanging out there. So, Andy, how about you share some thoughts?
Yeah. I think those are the top 3 teams that come to mind on my end as well. I think we're a little favorite. I think we're a little heavy on the AFC side, so I think sticking with an NFC team is probably the move here. The Saints, like you said, who knows when Derek Carr's coming back? That team is a mess. I mean, they scored 8 points this week. I mean, they don't know what they're doing. Dennis Allen's going to get fired. They're not making the playoffs. I'm totally down to pick the Saints. What about you, Dion? What do you think?
Oh, I totally agree. Watching last episode when Austin kept talking about the Saints, I was like, yep, that they gotta go. They gotta go. I was watching that Broncos game, I believe, and holy crap, there were so many broken tackles. They could not take Javonte Williams down. I was just like, this defense just looks terrible. They just got ran through.
I think the Saints aren't. There's no shot they're making the playoffs this year.
Okay, I feel comfortable with that. The other teams, the Dolphins play the Bills, and the Jets play the Texans. The Jets-Texans, that's basically a pick 'em, because the Texans lost another wide receiver. I want to see what happens. Another primetime game for the Jets. I just want to see. I want to let them decide whether or not they're eliminated. Okay. I say we just put a pin in that, and if the Jets lose
Sure.
that, then I'm ready to swing the axe and
Yeah,
officially
yeah.
declare their season over.
I definitely have more faith in Miami than I do in the Jets right now, even though they both lost this last week.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Miami look good. All right, Saints, you're out.
You gone.
Looking ahead to Week 9, we got some really nice matchups this week. I like them. They're pretty interesting. Let's talk about our own team, the Seahawks, going up against the Rams. Andy, what are your thoughts there as you see that on the schedule?
I think the Seahawks are a better team when they play away than when they play at home. I don't know what's going on with the 12s. I don't know what's going on at Lumen, but the Seahawks can't figure it out when they're at home. And Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nakua, Kyron Williams, give me the Rams. I mean, that is just going to be they're going to kick our butt, I think.
Yeah, this game is in Seattle, and when I saw that and when I saw the Rams do what they did on Thursday, I'm thinking, oh no, we're catching the Rams at the wrong time. And
Right.
the Rams, because it was a Thursday game, they get a couple extra days to rest up and prepare. So I'm super nervous about this. How about you, Deion? What are your
Oh
thoughts?
man, that last game just what Puka was coming. They said limited snaps. Yeah, right. He popped off. Oh my god. No wonder they were cool with trading Cooper. They're thinking about trading Cooper Kupp. Puka Nakua is a baller. He's gonna tear us up. I'm scared. I'm scared for the Hawks.
Yeah, I am too. I love seeing Puka Nakua back. Just watching, he pops off the screen just because you see how much aggression he plays with
Oh.
from the wide receiver position. That's kind of rare, but
Oh,
yeah,
he's looking for
angry.
contact. He's looking for
Yeah.
contact. That's crazy.
Another huge NFC divisional matchup. We have Lions versus Packers, and for years in the recent history, this matchup, Lions Packers, that would decide that division for a lot of years. It was okay, who's going to come out? Is it going to be Matthew Stafford or is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? Most of the time, it was Aaron Rodgers, but I know the Lions had the last laugh, and then ultimately they ran Rodgers out of the division. Seems like the Lions, I think they're favored in this matchup, but what are we thinking about this one?
It all comes down if Jordan Love is playing or not. Really,
True.
I think
Yeah,
that's it.
he pulled his groin, and they're not sure whether or not he'll be ready to go. So yeah, that's a huge asterisk on this whole
Yeah.
thing. But we've seen the Packers be decent with Malik Willis, better than people thought.
No,
Yeah. Yeah. They just have a different way to win with Malik Willis than they do with Jordan Love.
Yeah, no, it's going to be tricky if they don't have Love. If they do have Love, I think it's going to be very interesting. But yeah, it's pretty much impossible to pick against the Lions the way they're rolling right now. Would you agree, Dion? Even if Jordan Love is in?
I was actually leaning towards the Packers if Jordan Love
Okay.
was playing. Yeah,
Oh.
the way they've been playing, oh, they look like a whole complete team. And I don't know. I just love the way that Jordan Love is playing. It's weird because the Packers have a wide receiver by committee, in my opinion. There's no one guy, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's what makes them scary. Any of them could get two tutties. You never know.
It's
Yeah.
frustrating for fantasy,
Oh,
but
of course.
it's great for NFL. It's hard to
Uh-huh.
prepare against. And man, they found something with Tucker Kraft. So
Oh yeah.
Andy, what are if you had to pick this game, which way would you be going?
Oh yeah, it's all Detroit at this point. I love Green Bay's defense. I think they're still leading the league in total turnovers. But man, Detroit, like they seem unstoppable. No matter, like, Jameson Williams gets suspended, doesn't matter. Aiden Hutchinson out for the year, doesn't matter. Like, this team is just rolling, and I don't know how you pick against them.
Yeah, I would pick the Lions to win. I don't have the point spread off the top of the dome, but if Love plays, you just can't count them out. You know, like they have a chance every time Jordan Love is in that lineup. Lately, they've been winning close games, and I don't really have a problem with that. But
Right. Looks
Yeah,
like Detroit's favored by 3.5.
3.5. Yeah, I can see it being a
that,
close game
that's
at
about
Lambeau
right.
too. At
Yeah.
Lambeau.
And then the last game that I wanted to bring up before we get to our fantasy start sits was Ravens Broncos.
Hoo-hoo. I'm glad you brought that up
Yes,
because
please.
similar
You
to the Packers, I think Ravens now are wide receiver by committee with Deontay Johnson being added to the receiving core.
Yeah, that's a tough one to really make. We were
Exactly.
talking about that earlier. It's like, didn't they
Yeah,
re-sign Rashad Bateman? And like, what does this mean? Is
they
he the
did.
3 or is he still the 2?
There's
Or is
no
he the
one.
4?
There's no one. Even Mark
There is no
Andrews,
one.
right? There's no one anymore. I really don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. There's no tight end one. There's no wide receiver one. We don't know
Exactly.
Yeah.
what's going on there. I circled this game because, well, I do love the Ravens, and I am just enthralled with Bo Nix as a character in football, and how many haters he has, and how he seems to be sneakily winning a bunch of games. And Sean Payton, what he's doing, it's
Hmm.
all super interesting. The Broncos, the Ravens are 9-point favorites, and we'll talk about this game later, but. It's so crazy because the Broncos. Before last week, it seems like the Ravens were here and the Broncos were here, and then the Broncos get this big win, and the Ravens drop a game to the Browns, and so now I think it's a little closer, at least in my mind, than what I was thinking just a little bit ago. Andy, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, we've been called out as the Bo Nix fan club here on as the Fantasy Flow. So Denver's defense is just like out of this world. Bo Nix is really coming on, and I would be comfortable taking Baltimore at like a 6 or maybe a 5.5 spread or something like that. But 9.5, that's just like too much disrespect to Denver in my mind.
Yeah, Bo Nix, he was my quarterback that I was flowing into my lineup on the podcast last week. I said, flow in Bo Nix. And, screw it. I'm going to do it again. He's my flow in player of the week. I'm starting Bo Nix again, and I'm not scared of the Ravens. Their DBs, they're still hurt. I don't know exactly what their status is going to be. We're recording on Tuesday, but they're very vulnerable through the air. And I think that this Broncos offense is just getting better. And, even if the Ravens end up winning this game, if they end up winning by 9, I mean, that sounds like a passing game script to me. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think the Broncos need to win this game for him to have a good fantasy day. He either gets it through the air or he gets it with his legs on the ground. So, what do you think about that?
I totally agree. I actually jokingly said in my other guillotine league that Brown money line was the lock last week. I
Oh
jokingly
my.
said that. Oh, they were giving me shit. They're like, no way, Browns are gonna win. So I switched it up. I said I ended up saying after that the lock was Jameis Winston yards and Njoku yards. Parlayed them both. It's gonna hit because of Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins being out. And boom,
Yeah.
it hit. I was like, oh my god, why didn't we do it?
Yeah, I cannot believe the Browns actually took that game.
No, it basically just told me that any team could beat almost any team in the NFL. So you
Well,
could
that's
have
a
a
great
bad week,
reminder.
right? You could have a
I
bad
mean,
week, but
the Ravens already dropped the game to the Raiders, so
exactly.
you wouldn't think we'd need another reminder that any given Sunday anything can happen, but
Yeah.
Right.
we
But
got another one from the Browns.
Bo Nick's been hot. I like the Broncos plus 9.5. But really, I'm looking at the over under 45.5 for that game. Broncos offense been lighting up. Ravens, I don't think had scored under 45 in their total games in the last four
Mm,
games. So I'm liking the over under on that for the over.
yeah, that's a good one.
I
I
Yeah,
like
like
that
that
pick.
too.
I like
yeah.
that pick.
Yeah.
Speaking of picks, Andy, you want to hit us with a player that you're flowing into your lineup?
Yeah. I mean, you highlighted the Rams Seahawks game. I'm flowing Matthew Stafford in. I think he's going to just carve up the Seattle secondary. I think the Seahawks are still trying to find their identity on defense, on offense as a whole. We thought, they such a roller coaster team, and Seattle at home is not working. So yeah, give me Matthew Stafford, give me Cooper Kupp, give me Puka, give me Stafford to flow into my lineup and get over 300 yards and maybe 2 touchdowns, maybe even more.
Yeah, I love that pick. I was thinking about picking Matthew Stafford, but then I saw that you had already picked him. There's a select few defenses, now that he has his weapons back, right? There's a select few defenses that I wouldn't start Matthew Stafford against, and the Seahawks defense is not one of them.
Right, right.
Yeah, I'm totally with that. Here, another player that I want to throw out, flowing into my lineup, going wide receiver. I'm going Josh Downs for the Colts. Now that Joe Flacco is back in the lineup, that's great for Josh Downs. Gets the ball, gets it out quick. That's good for those short developing routes where he just creates separation. Boom, boom, racks it up for PPR. He's out on some waiver wires just because he had a total dud game 2 weeks ago. It looked like AR was back in the lineup for good. So, yeah, maybe he's at the bottom of your bench. Maybe he's available. But I would throw him definitely into my starting lineup. I think he's got a good matchup this week against the Vikings. I think that is one of the highest over-unders of the week. So I like having pieces in that game.
I'm going to go with Tyrone Tracy. Dion, let me know what you think about this. I thought they signed a different guy. I think his name is Devin Singletary, and he's just on the sideline now. And this Tyrone Tracy guy, he's just killing it for the Giants. He just comes out with all this burst and momentum. I'm throwing Tyrone Tracy if he's healthy. I think he got banged up a little bit this last week, but the Giants are going against Washington. They're gonna need to score to be competitive in this game. And Washington's only a 3.5-point favorite in New York. So, what do you think, Dion?
Oh man, Tyron Tracy. I think he looks good. I believe he's in concussion protocol this week.
Yeah.
Took a big hit, but I think the Seahawks defense just put him on the map. He tore us up, and he earned that starting spot. I don't think Devin Singletary's coming back.
Right. Yeah, this strikes me more as like a rest of season flow into your lineup. Because, this week I would be surprised if he played. Because, he probably got a concussion on Monday Night Football. So that's kind of a quick turnaround to get all the way through concussion protocol. But,
Sure.
Rest of season, definitely add him. If he does go out and maybe he gets dropped, so keep an eye on that. I do like the pick moving forward. Last player that I have flowing into my lineup, I'm going tight end, and I'm going with a player that has disappointed everyone. He's a disappointment to me, everyone else who owns him, maybe even his family. I'm going with Dalton Schultz for the Houston Texans.
I thought you were going to say Travis Kelce. Oh, man.
I thought he was going to say Sam Laporta.
There's a lot of disappointment. There's enough to go around.
The only one that's not disappointing is Brock Bowers.
Oh,
that boy is just nuts.
No. But,
Trey McBride.
I'm
Trey
reaching
McBride too,
into
money.
the filth, right? I'm not going with the top shelf names. I'm going with a player that might be available. I'm trying to help people out. And the Texans, they lost Nico Collins. This is the last game before Nico Collins comes back.
Yep.
So they're without Nico Collins and they're without Stephon Diggs. The ball has to go somewhere. I think it's going to go to Dalton Schultz. I think he's going to get more involved. So I don't know.
See that.
Tight end growth, you could do a lot worse.
Jets run defense not bad, so I can see them trying to slow down Joe Mixon. So
Yeah.
get the ball out quick.
And-
Get the ball out quick to Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, Dalton Schultz and Cade Stover. I have Cade Stover in my Dynasty League, and it definitely seems like they're trying to get him involved in the passing game. Yeah.
That's the one thing that could screw this up because, I have Dalton Schultz in a tight end premium Dynasty League. And, every time Stover gets the ball, I'm like, it's not my guy.
Yeah, they like throwing him in there, so I could easily see the ball going to both those guys a lot this next game.
All right, flowing out of your lineup, Andy.
Yeah, just talking about the Chargers earlier this episode. I'm flowing out J.K. Dobbins. I think, like we just said, the Chargers haven't scored over 30 points. Definitely seems like every game is just a crapshoot. Is it going to be a Justin Herbert passing game? Lads had a great game this last game. Are they going to pass the ball? Are they going to run the ball? Are they going to do either of those well enough for fantasy purposes? They're probably going to do both of those really well to win the game, but for fantasy wise, I don't know. I'm flowing J.K. Dobbins out against the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland this next game.
Oh man.
Yeah, that is a that's tough. What's sorry, and you probably just said it. Remind me their opponent.
Cleveland.
Yeah, they're playing the Cleveland Browns.
Well,
The
geez,
Browns,
yeah, that's a tough
they
defense.
held Derrick Henry and Lamar.
Yeah.
Well, at least for most of the game, they held down Lamar rushing wise.
Yeah, it's a tough opponent, and the Chargers have never scored more than 26 points so far this season. So,
Right.
if
None
you're
of their
26, that is the best case scenario. That's just kind of a risky pick if you're betting on an offensive player like I did with Lad McConkey last week. Oops, I guess that one worked out. But Dion, how about what are your thoughts on that?
Oh man, I've looked it up. Chargers, all of Chargers game, none of their totals exceeded 40 points. It's crazy this whole season.
I think they have the fewest points against in
Yeah,
the whole
yeah.
league.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Combined score from their opponents and them, none of them exceeded 40. So I think all their games hit the under except for one where they reached 39 points.
Yeah, they're
Wow.
playing all the
But no,
bad
yeah.
teams that I was talking about
No, yeah.
earlier today. Yeah.
But shoot, if I had to flow out some people out of your lineup right now, I say the Baltimore receiving core. You don't know who's getting the ball. It's honestly Lamar and Derek's team, in my opinion. Derrick Henry's team.
Yep.
So
Yep.
if I had to
Kind of
choose
a-
one, it'd be Zay Flowers. But as of right now, I wouldn't trust any receivers there.
But yeah, then whoever the wide receiver one is, if it is Zay Flowers, they're going up against the Broncos, so he's getting their number one DB. He's playing like the number one DB in the whole league.
Pat
So,
Surtain, right?
Yep, Pat Surtain, thank you. Yeah, I really don't mind that. That's going to be a really tricky one to navigate. I would love to just kind of take a step back and see, just
See what
get
happens,
a chance to
yeah.
observe what's going on before I put one of those players in my lineup. If you have the chance to do that, I think that's a great call. Player that I'm flowing out of my lineup, you just mentioned the whole Ravens wide receiver core. I'm going to do the same for the entire Buccaneers wide receiver core against the Chiefs. They're going up against the Chiefs. I think it's Monday Night Football. That's just one of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah.
And you might have spent a lot of fab trying to get one of these no-name guys who's suddenly starting for a high-powered offense. But we saw none of them really did anything. Baker Mayfield spread the ball around so much. Their tight end went off. He's dumping it down to the running back all the time. And, I just because you have a starting wide receiver, I don't think that really means anything, especially when you're going up against the Chiefs.
All right, I'm gonna go with Amari Cooper. The Miami Dolphins are coming to Buffalo, and Amari Cooper is gonna see Jalen Ramsey. And Miami actually has a pretty good secondary. They're number one against wide receivers in the fantasy landscape. So, and with all these wide receivers getting traded to these teams and all these big moves, I mean, it takes time to adjust, and we saw that this last week. They didn't even need Amari Cooper against Seattle. They didn't really even need him the other game.
True.
Right?
Yep.
Like, and so now he's going to get the number one coverage against the number one defense against wide receivers. I'm throwing Amari Cooper out of my lineup.
I don't know, man. This feels like mind games because I have Baker Mayfield and Amari Cooper in my lineup for in our home league, in our home redraft league. So I'm.
Are you playing Andy? Is that why?
We just played each other last week, and
Yeah.
Amari Cooper put up 1 point in my
Yeah.
in my lineup. Andy crushed me. So that gives me something to think about for sure. One that I don't really have to think too hard about. C.J. Stroud going up against the Jets on Thursday Night Football. That's an easy flow out of my lineup. I'm not starting him. He's one of the last quarterbacks I would start. Like, it's hard for me to think of a format
Yes.
where I would be like, oh yeah, C.J. Stroud, put him in. Like, that's just a tough spot. That's pretty obvious. Other one I'm going to throw out there. I don't know if ETN is coming back or not, but I'm just going to say bench all Jaguars running backs against the Philadelphia Eagles this week.
Ooh.
I
Yeah.
think that the Eagles are going to handle the Jaguars. The Jaguars are going to be without a lot of their top receivers. They went down. We didn't even talk about it in the news, but like Christian Kirk is gone. Brian Thomas Jr. is gone for a couple weeks, I think. So I think just game script wise, it's going to be bad news for the Jaguars running backs. Hey, just wanted to jump in here real quick to remind you all about our partnership with BetStamp. If you're ready to take your sports betting to the next level and you want to support our show, we highly recommend signing up for your next sportsbook through the show's Signup Expert link in the description. This will allow you to take advantage of many new user offers available. And don't forget to bet responsibly by tracking all of your bets and getting yourself the best odds through the BetStamp app. Back to the show! All right, guys. Fantasy Flow 4-pack. We're going to hit you with 4 games. In this case, we're cranking it up to 5 games because we have our guest Deion. He's going to hit us with a pick against the spread for this week, NFL Week 9. Take a look at last week. We can't stop going 2-2, and it's very frustrating. We made 5 picks last week, which was good because we threw one of them outright because I thought Marcus Mariota was going to be playing. So we don't count that one. We still went 2-2. We picked the Cowboys plus 5.5. They ended up losing by 6. So that's a terrible bad beat. And I blame Rico Dowdle and his mysterious illness. That was one of our flow-in players, and we thought he was going to be the key to victory for the Cowboys. So that was just a brutal blow. Let's get this started right. I am going to take the Eagles to cover 7.5 versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jags, like I just said, without Christian Kirk, without Brian Thomas, this team is flailing. And I think the Eagles, I loved what I saw from them last week. So I'm going to try and make it 2 weeks in a row, putting the Eagles to cover in our Fantasy Flow 4-pack.
I like the pick.
Andy, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to find out how many times Philadelphia has covered their spread this year. I feel like 7.5 is a little bit big, but it is in Philadelphia, and I've been saying these last couple of weeks, Philadelphia's defense is just ramping up more and more each game. And as I just mentioned earlier, Jalen Hurts is probably going to finish as the quarterback 1, at least top 3. So give me Philly, and I think 7.5 is just about right for this week.
Yeah, I just quick point there. They beat the Giants by 25 and the Bengals by 20 in their last 2 games. So I described the Eagles on the podcast last week as a vibes team. The vibes and the head coach, they feel like front runners. And we saw that last season, right? They were like the Chiefs of this year, last year, where they were undefeated for a long time. And I call them front runners because when you're undefeated, vibes are good, everything's great. And then when you start to encounter some adversity, well, then everything goes to shit real quick. I just think the vibes are going to continue to be up because they're playing one of the worst teams in the league, in the Jaguars, at the best time. They just lost their offensive weapons. So I'm just trying to ride the wave.
I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. The Eagles are hot right now. Ever since A.J. Brown came back from injury, I think Jalen Hurts found his rhythm. So their offense is connecting.
Andy.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a favorite. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills at minus 6.5 against the Miami Dolphins. I think Miami is still trying to figure things out. Buffalo is rolling. Another team that is just catching heat right here in the middle of the season, like Philadelphia. It's in Buffalo, divisional game. Give me the Bills and Josh Allen.
Yeah. When I saw that spread 6.5, I definitely thought it would be more. When I saw that, I was a little surprised. So yeah, if they can just win by a touchdown, that's nice and cozy. That's a little more cozy than my Eagles 7.5. You know, if you want to buy that line down to get that at 6.5 too, throw that into your parlay. That makes a lot of sense. But yeah, how about you, Deion? They're a game that's catching your eye.
Growing up, I was always told, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right? So, for some reason, there's been a pattern going on that whoever plays the Lions, win or lose, just playing the Lions, you lose your next game. I don't know what it is. You know, Jared Goff's probably touching the ball weird. I don't know what it is, right?
Bad juju, yeah.
Bad juju. So, they just smacked the Titans this week. So, Titans are now the favorites, 3.5 to the Patriots, after the Patriots just beat the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. Give me the Patriots. Give me the Patriots plus 3.5. Titans can win by 3. I don't care. They're not gonna cover that 3.5. Hey, I believe Patriots gonna just win outright.
That line really surprised me. Yeah, it's two gross teams, so which means it's going to be low scoring, you would think. And in low scoring games, the point spread, the amount of points you're getting, means more, in my
Correct.
opinion. So yeah, if you're getting more than a field goal in a game that we kind of see as a coin flip, I do love that. But then I thought, oh, but Drake May might not be in, and they might go back to
Right.
Brissett. Do you care which quarterback is playing on Sunday?
I don't. I think they can get it done with the run game. I think they just gotta get in field goal range. That's really it.
Okay.
A lot of field goals this game.
Yeah, I do like that pick.
Yeah.
Andy, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going with an underdog. I don't know what Vegas is thinking on this one here. Houston has a +2 spread against the Jets right now on Thursday Night Football. How are the 2-win Jets favored against Houston? I don't care where it's at. Like, Houston has 6 wins. Jets have 2. Why is Houston not favored? So that's an easy bet in my mind.
But Andy, the Jets can't go 2-7.
I mean,
It can't get any worse.
yeah, we keep on seeing these New York teams on primetime games, and guess what? They keep on losing.
Yeah, no, it absolutely can get worse. It can always get worse. Yeah, just like the Jets fans last year when Rodgers tore his ACL, they said it couldn't get any worse. I would argue this might be worse. Not only does your team have a worse record, but they let you down every week as opposed to not having any expectations and then your team losing. They keep expecting to win, and yeah, Vegas is expecting them to win even.
Yeah.
It's, man, yeah, Thursday's weird. I know I've gotten banged before by trying to predict what's going to happen on Thursday Night Football. It's just such an unpredictable, crazy roller coaster. But I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for our picks. And that would make it really easy to eliminate the Jets next week if what you're saying came to fruition.
You gotta be careful with that. You know, Vegas always wins. And it sucks. I'm just trying to pull it up right now. It looks like 91% of the money is on Houston for Thursday. The public is on Houston. Vegas got to win somehow, right? So something's gonna happen. Something fishy.
I mean,
it sounds
that is fishy, but I'm buying into the fish.
I totally
give me
get
that
it.
Salmon.
I totally understand.
All right, we got to make it too big to rig. Okay, we need more money on this. All right, last pick. I teased it earlier, and I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm going Broncos +9 against the Ravens.
Wow.
So many different ways to win, in my opinion. The Broncos could look like they did last week and win outright. They could lose a close one, or they could just get blown out and then just in garbage time get back to within 9. Like, you know, there's a lot of different game scripts, and I think we all agree that spread is a little too much for 2 5-3 teams.
I mean, I would argue Broncos are better than the Browns, right? And we saw
True.
Right?
Yeah, their defense is great. It doesn't all have to be Bo Nix. It doesn't have to be Bo Nix versus Lamar Jackson.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's a lot of players playing that game, and I think the Broncos' defense is just all around better than the Ravens right now. So yeah, hopefully they can keep it close. Hopefully we can do well. I like that we have an odd number of picks this week. So we were not going to go 2-2. Okay, we're either going to be in the money or we're going to be in the tank.
Right.
This has been a ton of fun. Deion, thanks again for joining the show.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Of course.
Yeah. I hope I don't get shopped this week.
Yeah, hopefully neither one of you guys get chopped. This will be really fun to track. I'd love to have you on again later. I think that'd be a good
definitely,
time.
definitely, man.
All right, well, listeners, thanks for hanging out with us. That's all. See ya.
See ya.
Thanks a ton for making it to the end of the episode. You're a real one. Don't Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's a free, easy way to support the show, and it really helps us out. And leave us your comments down below if you're on YouTube, or send in your questions at thefantasyflowpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time.